Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. And recently, I did a video where I did my favorite horror movie from each year of the 80s. Well, now I'm back to do my favorite horror movie from each year in the 90s. Yes, the 90s. My childhood years. Of which I actually only had seen one of these during the time that it came out. Like the next year on Stars, but some of these are going to be obvious for obvious reasons. If you're not familiar, what I do is I have picked out one movie from each year that's my personal favorite I'm going to talk about, but I've also listed other good movies from that year that I've seen or reviewed. But for this one, there was a lot of movies when I was going through the 90s on Google that they included during the years that weren't horror movies, so I'm going to just sort of mention those, that it's odd. So I'm going to have to explain what I don't think is a horror movie. We'll get there. Not like I don't think that Terminator is a horror movie. For any of those who are wondering why I didn't put Terminator on the list, I don't call it a horror movie. It's a sci-fi action film. It's got slasher stuff, sure, but just because it has a slasher element does not make it horror. Sorry. Alien is more horror, and that's a sci-fi movie, but Aliens is more horror, and that's a sci-fi action film. But starting in 1990, you got movies like the Night of the Living Dead remake, which is really good, Jacob's Ladder, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, Frankenhooker, Wanna Get Lucky, Nightbreed, which I contend is a good movie, Flatliners, the original one, which is fine, Troll 2, which, yes, I don't include sequels, but technically that's not a sequel because it was called Goblin, and they called it Troll 2, so it's not technically a sequel. And of course, the great Frankenstein Unbound, starring John Hurt and his time-traveling talking car. Yes, and they put Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, Darkman, which I get it, Sam Raimi, but it's not really horror, and Edward Scissorhands. That's gothic to me, not full-out horror. But my pick, of course, is Tremors. That's right. Tremors. It came out. This is the collection. I didn't have this in my horror session because I guess I was like, this is not there? No, I only really consider the first one a full horror movie. The other ones steer more into action territory. I mean, there's a lot of action there, but there's a lot of moments of genuine horror in the first one, where they find old Fred, where they find the guy, old Fred's head, where they find the guy hanging up on the pole, just those construction workers, just everything, What the hell is going on? I mean, what the hell is going on? When Victor Wong gets eaten, it's more horror-centric here, and the rest of the movies get more action-packed, especially by the third one. So, yeah, I don't consider all of these horror, just the first one, really, but I had to put it on there, even with the big list that there was. But yeah. So 1991 is a shorter list. Sometimes they come back, Stephen King movie, Silence of the Lambs, and the remake of Cape Fear. And then Google had the Addams Family on there. Now, I just did the Addams Family based on TV month. Again, that's a bit gothic, but not full-out horror. It's a little macabre, but no. My pick, and this is a bit cheating because I always said I have to have the movie, but I'm sorry. It's Subspecies. It's Subspecies, right? By David D'Accato, or maybe it's not him, I don't know. But it's fantastic. Just the look, the feel, It's great. I love Subspecies. Even though the subspecies is not even the star, it's Radu Fladislas, You know? We go to 1992, and we have movies like Sleepwalkers, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Carfax Epic, Death Becomes Her, which I will say is a horror comedy, but I do not have it on my horror shelf. I probably should. Demonic Toys, Bad Channels, 2 Charlie Band movies there, produced anyway. Google had Stay Tuned, which I guess the Wayne's World thing had a little bit of horror to it, but no. And Cool World? Huh? How is that horror? I don't know. But of course I picked Candyman. Helen, be my victim. Directed by Bernard Rose, starring the late great Tony Todd. This is gothic as well, I think. It has a little bit to it. It has that feel where like it is a black movie, so sometimes us white people like myself, we feel, I don't know, off watching it, but I think it's just enough. I don't think it hammers in like the 2021 movie that they did. It doesn't hammer it in too hard, so I think it works. And this is a fantastic horror film, and one of my favorite of the 90s, and I love it. Alright, 1993 gives us, again, not much. The Dark Half with Timothy Hutton, the Stephen King movie I reviewed a couple years ago. Fire in the Sky, very horrifying. Trauma, Dario Argento's Trauma, which I like. Shut up. And Google had Hocus Pocus, which I can concede is a little bit horrorish. The American Ashley movie Double Toilet and Trouble, which I haven't reviewed, but I do own it, and someday. And the full moon film Invisible, The Chronicles of Benjamin Knight. More sci-fi than horror, I think, but it's full moon, so they gotta throw it in there, I guess. But my pick is Leprechaun, me dear. That's right, Leprechaun, which, by the way, I will be doing a revisited for. I'm gonna start doing revisit reviews for these. They'll be once a year. It's about time I do that. So we're gonna get the first Leprechaun revisited this year. Look forward to that. But Warwick Davis is fantastic. It just look like I still joke with my son. You know that he knows Warwick Davis from this because when we watched the Harry Potter cook-off, bake-off, or whatever it was, Warwick Davis was on there, and he looked at me and goes, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Your wife makes a fine parati, Danny, me boy." He's like, "That's him?" "Yeah, that's him." But you hear his voice, you know it's him. It's fantastic. And I think Warwick Davis should be recognized for this, and not Harry Potter or frickin' Willow. Okay? This is his legendary role. Kind of like Tony Todd with Candyman. And Tony Todd, people call out Final Destination more than anything. 1994 is another one that is very short. We have Wolf with Jack Nicholson, which I reviewed. It's pretty good. Cemetery Man, underrated horror film from the 90s, starring Rupert Everett. And then, goddamn Google, The Crow, which some people say is horror, and I'll concede, I do have it on the horror shelf, but I don't call it full-out horror. It's like a revenge flick, sort of thriller type situation. I do have it on the shelf with the remake. Well, the remake's on there because it was horrifying. Yeah. Oblivion, the full moon film, that was more of an action western thing. Tammy and the T-Rex, okay, that's a comedy movie with gore. That's a schlock film. It's got some horror elements, but not really. Natural Born Killers. Okay, people be dying in that movie, but it's not a horror movie. It's more of a crime thriller than anything. But my pick is In the Mouth of Madness. Why do I... Oh, because I thought people were going to pick The Crow, obviously. But because I don't consider it a straight horror movie. John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness is fan-freaking-tastic. Sam Neill is great. Do you read Sutter Kane? The freaking... What's her name? Happy Gilmore's grandma. Crawling like a creature. Great effects. Greg Nicotero. There you go. Can be. Just great. 1995 gives us some more ice cream. I just put ice cream. I must be hungry. Ice cream man. It's grenadine for my ice cream treats. Castle Freak. Stuart Gordon film, which I like but don't love. 7, and all people put 7 as number 1, but it's their pick. Species, which was my pick until I realized Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight came out in 1995 and is by far the best horror film that came out that year. Bunch of po dunk, well done there, motherfuckers! Right there. How about a long, hard one? It's great, man. It's fantastic. What else do I have to say? It hits on all cylinders. So say there's not a lot in the 90s, but there are some pretty good ones, and this is one of the good ones, you know what I mean? So we get to 1996, and the pick is obvious. I mean, come on, but we're talking about the other ones. The Frightened... Oh, by the way, in 1995, Google put Casper under the horror movie banner. No, that's a comedy. It's a gothic comedy, but it's a comedy. So, 1996, we have The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox, which is a horror comedy, I think, but it's good. From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't believe in vampires, and what I saw was fucking vampires. Bad Moon, pretty good werewolf flick. Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood, which I included because it's an anthology film, so it's not a straight up sequel. It's just maybe in the same universe because they have that amulet thing. And The Dentist with Corbin Burnson. And Google had Twister under horror in 1996. Which technically that's a 1997 movie, isn't it? I don't know. But obviously my pick is Scream. Right? Right. So, Scream. What else can I say about Scream? I've said too much already. I've reviewed this. I've revisited and reviewed it. It's a fantastic movie. Wes Craven's best film. It's better than Nightmare on Elm Street. I said it. Okay? It's his best film. Pooh. Cry me a river. Oh, cry me a river. Oh. It is his best film. By far. And what's your favorite scary movie? Because it's a Scream, baby. And never at any circumstances say you'll be right back. Because you won't be right back. Hey, you want another beer? Yeah, sure. I'll be right back. It's fantastic. We get to 1997. And we got movies like Jack Frost. The horror one, obviously. Fever Lake, which I think is a 1996 film, but it was in 97. Cube. Campfire Tales, which I just reviewed. It's in To Be Tuesday somewhere. Event Horizon. And I think what will be most people's pick, I know what you did last summer, but my pick, What Be Your Pleasure, Sir? Wishmaster. The little horror movie they could. This came out of nowhere at a time where horror movies were kind of on the back burner. Scream just came out. Things were going nuts. This is sort of like a look in the past the way it is, but it's fantastic. Gore-filled. Andrew Divoff is fantastic as the Shin. The second one is not bad either, and then 3 didn't. It's fine, and then 4 no. But the first one is fantastic. Excuse me for a moment. Sorry about that. I'm gonna do something. So we get to 1990. Oh, and in 1997, Under Wraps was down as horror. It's more kiddie than anything. 1998, we have John Carpenter's Vampires. Disturbing Behavior, which I think is not that bad. Deep Rising, which I also just reviewed. Blade, I'll count it. Dead Man's Curve, underrated in my opinion. The X-Files, whatever it's called. Fight for the Future. I'll call that horror. It's sci-fi horror. I count the X-Files show as horror. urban legend, which could be some people's picks. But of course, my pick is Gus Van Sant's shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. It is one of the best movies ever made. It's shot-for-shot remake, so it's done very well. Obviously, I am pulling chain here. It's The Faculty. Okay? It's The Faculty. And before I move on, they had Halloween Town, Jack Frost, the Michael Keaton one, which I guess some people were scared of that. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and the 1998 Godzilla is horror. Let me tell you something right now. Godzilla was, and never will be horror. It's sci-fi. That's it. It's not horror. Never ever. People need to stop lumping Godzilla -1 into the horror category. People are like, it was the horror. The Oscars nods to horror, and they have that in there. That's not horror. It's sci-fi. There's a difference. But anyway, back to this. This is sci-fi, but it's sci-fi horror, and it's done very well. Robert Rodriguez directed it. It has a fantastic cast. Don't know why Usher's on the cover. He doesn't do jack shit in this movie. And Elijah Wood, despite not being he is on the cover, being to the side here, is actually the main protagonist, and not to him. He has something to do, but he's taken out pretty early into the final act there with his bad haircut. He was doing Halloween H2O at the time, and it's just a DVD, but it's fine. I like to watch this DVD cover. It's fine. So 1999, we've reached 1999, end of the millennium, the beginning of the millennium, end of this, whatever. And we have movies like Bats, The House on Haunted Hill remake, The Blair Witch Project, which most people would wrongfully pick because it's not a good movie. I don't care what you say. The only good thing about the original Blair Witch was the marketing. Take that out, it's a bunch of idiots running through the woods screaming for an hour and a half. The Haunting, also no good movie. Lake Placid is a good movie. And then Idle Hands, which could have been my pick, but I picked Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon. I almost said Michael Caine. Kevin Bacon. And Google had The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. I see it as more as an action adventure, but I will concede that the first one has more horror elements than the other two. But still, Don't Look Under the Bed, the Disney Channel movie. Okay, there's horror elements to it, but I can't outright say a kid's movie is horror for me. Jawbreaker? What the hell are you smoking? It's not horror. Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost? That one did creep me out a little bit when I was younger. And The Bone Collector. That's a crime thriller, but close. But I will do... my pick is a Stir of Echoes. I can speak freaking English. Stir of Echoes, fantastic psychological horror film with Kevin Bacon. You know, it's great. David Kapp wrote and directed this. It's a fantastic film. I said before. I recently rewatched it. They did a double feature with this and the Hollow Man. Great double feature, by the way. They did do a sequel. I have not seen it. Eventually, I'll have to do it. But for now, this stands above the rest. In 1999. So there you have it. My picks for my favorite horror movie in every year of the 1990s. What's your favorite horror movie for every year of the 1990s? Leave me a comment. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Sky, and I'll see you in the next one.